A historic night in Chicago. Vice President Kamala Harris became the first black woman and first Asian American person to accept a major party's nomination for president. A good Thursday evening. Thanks for staying up late with us. Tonight, I'm Priscilla Casper. An electrifying final night of the Democratic National Convention. All week, we've had team coverage from the Windy City, and tonight is no different. Our Matt Pritchard is standing by on the convention floor, and our Sue O'Connell is here with political analysis. But I do want to begin with my colleague Glenn Jones, live there from the United Center. Glenn, good evening.
Good evening, Priscilla. The history of this moment was unmistakable tonight. Vice President Harris just delivered the biggest speech of her life. She just introduced herself to millions of Americans by telling her own story and touching on several issues important to voters. That included the rising costs, immigration, and, surprisingly, the Israel-Hamas war.
President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
A lot of foreign policy in that speech tonight, a bit of a surprise for me at least. I'm joined now by political analyst Sue O'Connell. All right, let's start things off in the most simple way. Rate that speech 1 to 10, considering the weight of the moment.
I would say it is an 8, maybe a 9. It's a 10 for Kamala Harris for the amount that, as you said, the best and most important speech that she has ever given. Listen, if you only thought of Kamala Harris, and I'm not being snarky here, as coconuts or her laugh, or maybe she failed at the border, or she's kind of goofy and talks in a word salad, or maybe she's not serious, and you were meeting her for the first time tonight, you saw that prosecutor, you saw that serious person that people have known that Kamala Harris has always been. She was filled with gravitas. She was direct. She made a very forceful argument as to why Donald Trump should not be president again and why she should be president. And she also really said, Joe and I are working on these issues already together. So in effect, I'm already doing these things. It was a remarkable masterclass. Clearly, she would be great in a courtroom. I can't wait for the debates. You know, will the voters react to this in a way that says, yes, I can both take the coconuts and I can take the prosecutor?
Well, we know Harris's address was filled with her personal background, history, but she also touched on the economy, which is really important to voters, saying at one point that building that middle class will be a defining goal of her presidency. We know voters across the country think costs are too high. Is she saying the right things to those Americans to win their vote, especially in the swing states?
Yeah, I think so, Glenn, because it's not just about the cost. It's not just about the inflation. It's about how middle-class people get caught. Right? Sometimes they make too much money to get college aid for their kids, but they don't make enough money maybe to sell their house and move to a smaller house in order to stay in their own neighborhood. So there's a whole bunch of just really trappy things that happen when you're in the middle class, which Kamala Harris has clearly said she understands, and she's going to work on all those fronts to try and decrease the challenges of being a middle-class person in the United States.
Well, another key issue for voters is immigration. Donald Trump and the Republicans have consistently laid into the vice president on her approach at the border. Kamala Harris shot back by saying she has plans to bring back the bipartisan border bill Republicans killed in the Senate. Give us your thoughts on that approach.
Well, Glenn, I said earlier that I don't think she was going to talk about her identity so much in the speech. She was going to try and be on the offense, and one of these things is on immigration. I was struck by how she didn't speak about the people who were trying to cross the border, the migrants and immigrants into the United States. Most Democrats say these people want to be here. We should help them. We should figure out what to do. She didn't do that. Kamala Harris spoke about the security of the United States, the security of keeping the border safe, and then pivoted to Ukraine, putting it in the same pot, if you will. So I think that she is taking a line on immigration, and with this immigration bill that she says she will sign, which is a much more conservative viewpoint than many Democrats and most progressives have. So it's definitely a departure from what people think she might have said, was going to say.
All right, so it's not too long to go until Election Day on November 5th. So beginning with this speech, Kamala Harris had to show a policy position that was more moderate than when she ran for president before. So let's look at some numbers, because this is really important. A New York Times poll shows that likely voters in key swing states, that's very important, say that Harris is too liberal. 45% say that she is too liberal or too progressive. So she really needs to move the number on these voters. Did this speech help to do that, do you think?
If you did not know that Kamala Harris was a Democrat and you watched this convention over the past couple of days, you would have thought that this might have been a Republican convention from maybe, the Reagan years or the Eisenhower years.
When the party was more centrist.
Absolutely. Even though she may have some progressive ideas and values, as does Walz, and she certainly showed those in the last time she ran for president, who you saw her tonight as this prosecutor who is telling people what they need to do, that's who she is. And I think that this is going to help with conservative voters, conservative Democrats, give her a second look.